The afternoon sun dipped low over the ocean, painting the horizon in molten shades of orange and gold. On the pier, a crowd had gathered, curious faces turning toward the naval training ground where the Navy SEALs were preparing for their demonstration. Families, veterans, and tourists lined up along the railing, their voices rising and falling like the tide as anticipation built. Among them stood a woman who looked out of place, not because she was unwelcome, but because she carried an aura that seemed heavier than the laughter and excitement around her. Her name was Emily, 31 years old, her long dark hair tied back in a simple braid, a faded denim jacket covering her arms. She had come here quietly, alone, standing near the back, hoping to watch without being noticed. To her, this wasn't about spectacle or pride, it was about memory. A ghost from her past had drawn her here. As the SEALs marched into position, boots striking against the wooden platform, Emily's heart began to pound. Their presence, their discipline, the sharp precision of their movements, it all hit her like a storm she had been bracing for years. But she wasn't here for the thrill of the show. She was here because of her brother. Daniel had been a SEAL once, a man of courage and laughter, whose letters had carried her through the darkest nights of her youth. But Daniel never came back. His name was carved into a quiet stone at Arlington, a loss that had left a hollow space inside her chest that time never fully healed. She had told herself that today she would just watch, just pay her respects silently from a distance, nothing more. But fate often works differently than the plans we cling to. The commander of the unit, a tall man with broad shoulders and the quiet confidence of someone who had seen both victory and loss, stepped forward to address the crowd. His name was Commander James Rourke, a man decorated for bravery, respected by his men, known for a presence that could silence an entire field without him raising his voice. As he spoke about sacrifice, duty, and the relentless training that shaped warriors, Emily listened with her arms folded, trying to remain still. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry, not here, not now, and then it happened. When the crowd shifted, the sleeve of her jacket slipped up just enough to reveal the ink on her wrist, a simple tattoo of a trident entwined with a date. It was small, delicate, but unmistakable to anyone who had walked the same path. The commander's eyes locked onto it, and in that instant his voice faltered. The words died in his throat, and silence spread over the gathering like a ripple across still water. For the first time in years, Emily felt the weight of a gaze that recognized more than just a design on her skin. Commander Rourke's expression changed, discipline breaking into something raw, something vulnerable. His silence was not confusion. It was memory. It was recognition. That tattoo wasn't just ink, it was Daniel's. Before we dive deeper into this powerful and emotional story, I want to pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in the strength of second chances, and in honoring the sacrifices of those who came before us, please take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel, Legends Off History. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Now let's continue. The demonstration carried on, but Commander Rourke's composure never fully returned. Every glance he stole toward the back of the crowd carried weight. He remembered Daniel, not just as a soldier under his command, but as a brother in arms. Memories flooded back of nights on deployment when Daniel would talk about his younger sister, Emily, about how he wanted to keep her safe, about how she was the anchor that kept him human when the world around them turned into chaos. And now here she was, standing in front of him like a living echo of a fallen man. Emily didn't notice at first. She was lost in her own battle, fighting the rising tide of emotion. But when the event ended and the crowd began to thin, she looked up and saw him walking directly toward her. His presence cut through the noise, and before she could even think, Commander Rourke was standing before her. She expected words, formality, perhaps sympathy, but instead there was only silence. His eyes dropped to the tattoo, then back to her face, and she realized he didn't need to ask who she was. He already knew. For Emily, it was like being pulled back into a past she had avoided for so long. The tattoo had been her secret reminder, something she never explained, something she carried like a hidden scar. To have it recognized was both terrifying and strangely comforting. In that silence, in the heaviness of that gaze, she felt something shift inside her. The days that followed were a quiet unraveling of walls she had built over years. Commander Rourke found ways to reach out, not as a superior officer speaking to the sister of a fallen soldier, but as a man who had also carried grief. He told her stories about Daniel she had never heard, the jokes he told on missions, the courage he showed when no one was watching, the sacrifices that went unmentioned in letters. With every story, Emily felt her brother's memory come alive in a way she hadn't experienced since his passing. But it wasn't easy. Grief has sharp edges, and reopening those wounds was painful. Emily struggled with guilt. Guilt for moving on. Guilt for not being there when Daniel needed her. Guilt for trying to bury the pain. Commander Rourke, in turn, wrestled with his own regrets. He had led men into battles where not everyone returned, and Daniel's loss was a weight he carried every day. Two broken pieces, each convinced they had to suffer alone, slowly began to realize that healing wasn't meant to be solitary. The turning point came one quiet evening when Emily stood by the shoreline, the waves washing against her feet. She whispered a promise to her brother, a promise that she would stop hiding, that she would live in a way that honored him instead of drowning in his absence. Commander Rourke stood beside her, not speaking, just being there. And in that presence, Emily understood something profound, that sometimes the people we least expect become the very lifeline we need. By the end of her journey, Emily wasn't just the sister of a fallen SEAL. She became a living testament to resilience, to the idea that grief and hope can coexist. She found her voice again, not by forgetting Daniel, but by carrying his memory forward with strength instead of sorrow. And Commander Rourke, he too found healing in her presence. A reminder that leadership wasn't only about commanding men in battle, but also about standing with those left behind. This story is more than just about loss, it's about connection, about the threads that bind us even when life feels fractured. It's about the power of silence that speaks louder than words, and the courage to face what we've tried so hard to bury. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel the weight of sacrifice and the beauty of second chances, I ask you to take a moment right now, like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Legends Off History. Together we keep these stories alive, stories that remind us of the strength and kindness and the resilience of the human spirit. And before we end, special request. Drop a comment below and share what this story made you feel. Did it remind you of someone you've lost? Did it give you hope? Your words matter here.